I wanted to specifically say introduction to shamanism because this is a giant topic. There is so much that we can cover under the guise of shamanism. For me, it's been 40 years worth of a journey and I'm still learning stuff. I wanted to share what I learned today. It has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, which is a typical Shane segue. Those of you who know me will keep up just fine. It was a Buddhist concept of the glass is already broken. I loved this. I just never heard it put in this way. And they were talking about, we'll do the cup is already broken. They're talking, the students asking the monk, for the lesson of the day and how he could possibly be happy in a world of impermanence. Nothing lasts. Your greatest joy will fade. The people you love will die. The planet eventually will be consumed by the sun and everything will be gone. Sounds really bleak and ugly and not wonderful. And they said, how do you find happiness in that moment? And his response was to pick up his favorite glass and say, I love this cup. I love this cup. It holds my coffee. It's beautiful. It fits my hand just right. It's perfect. And then he goes on to say, one day the wind might knock it off the shelf or I might drop it or whatever. And when it breaks, my response is going to be, of course, because I already knew it would be broken someday. I'm not going to lose my happiness of enjoying it every single day up till that moment. And if we get to the point where we accept that we're going to lose the people that we love. We're going to lose that career one day. Our bodies will have a certain level of decline. Less if you do yoga. You'll have all sorts of things happen. And if we already know that's happening, and we just go ahead and accept it, that's the key. Accept it and it's like, well, that's just a fact. Like the sun's going to come up tomorrow. All these other things at some point are going to happen. At some point. Why would you suffer up to that moment? Why would you worry about it? When you get to that moment, your response should be, well, yeah, of course it did, because everything does. That's actually why I wear this mala. It represents the great impermanence. But I've talked that sort of thing for years, but hearing that idea of the glass is already broken or the whatever is already ended, and when you get to that moment going, of course, I knew it was going to be that way anyway. Having that knowledge and the, I'm sure there's some great psychological term for it, but the fulfillment of knowing you were right. Yes, I knew that was coming. Yes, I knew that was there. And we take all of the surprises out that, newsflash, they're not surprises. We all know that those things don't last forever. We all know that everything shifts and changes. If you've been alive for any period of time, you know nothing sticks. Everything keeps changing and shifting around. And so this is just stepping into the idea that we're not pretending the other way anymore. That's what I learned today. And in 40 years, you keep learning and you keep studying. And what I'm going to be bringing in today is an extremely eclectic version of shamanism. I always have to hit the high points with this. Barb, spirit woman, you'll hear me go back and forth. She was the one who taught me initially. She was the one who first called me a shaman. And she would start every lesson with, this is how I learned. If you know another way, share it with me so we can learn from each other. I think we need to get back to that in the society in general. Here's how I know to do it. You know a different way? That's great. You just saw all the different rattles that I have out here. They all do the same thing. They make a noise when you shake them. They will come from the traditions and the materials and whatever were available to the shamans that were there. The reason we talk about different materials and things and all of that is because shamans have been around as long as there have been people. As long as there have been people and the concept of a spirit world, there's been somebody that's like, I think I have the go-between. I think I can connect those. I think I could step in and serve as an intermediary for that. I oddly enough think that I can understand you, and I think I can understand them. And we go into that role, that service that's there. And so if you look at modern day, everything from rabbi, priest, counselor, your Baptist minister, the psychotherapist that you see, all of those would have been the shaman back in antiquity. They would have served all of those different purposes. They would have done all of the different functions within their group of people. And the biggest one there is being that go-between for the people and the spirit world. And a lot of it, there's a story, I think it's an entire book actually if I recall, called How the Shaman Stole the Moon. And one of the reasons I love sharing this is because the truth of sharing it, if you don't listen all the way through, is like, oh yeah, I knew you guys were all a fraud and a fake. You finally admitted it. That's how the thing starts. That's where it begins. The shaman shows up with the new tribe, the new group of people, and they're like, okay, what are your abilities? And he says, I will prove my abilities to you. And every night goes out and does this drumming and this chanting and everything. and steals the moon. The moon disappears. He was used to when the cycles of the moon went. He brought it back the next week, by the way. But he goes through and it's this big production, and the only reason the people fell for it, they lived outdoors under the freaking moon. They saw it do this every single month. The reason the guy got away with it is because he's charismatic, and he brought in the entertainment, and he knew how to perform ceremony and ritual and all of these sorts of things. And I very much embrace that. I refer to myself as the Shane Show. This personality comes out of me pretty much all the time, and if you get close enough, you'll get some of it on you, and for the most part, that's a good thing. And if we embrace the idea that there's a truth back behind that, there's a real spirit that I believe in, there's a real connection to a higher power that I truly believe in, and we allow that ceremony and that show and that front part to be there to draw people in and get that interest and get an emotional response, they've already changed. They've already shifted. They've already reached towards that spirit. And just because I'm over here doing my song and dance, they're reaching for spirit, and spirit's like, oh, you're reaching, okay, boom, and there's an actual connection. And in that way, the theatrics, as a lot of people would look at it, actually have a purpose. And if we, for those of you who've been to my manifesting workshop, and you're familiar with the idea of borrowing an emotion, or we talk about building up an energy, finding a positive memory in your life, and attaching it to what you're trying to create so that the energetic vibe you're putting out is a much stronger one. If we can all believe the idea that thoughts create reality, I think that's a generally accepted idea in some regards. Thoughts are that big. Your thoughts are emotions create reality. If you do not believe me, next time you get very, very upset, just tell yourself to calm down and think rationally. In fact, it works better. Next time somebody around you is very emotional, say that to them.
I hear telling a woman to calm down, though. I actually read that as kind of pointless to do.
It's not just for women, trust me. The idea here is that we want to put a giant energetic signature out with our, most people would say intention, I would say expectation, that's all of the workshop too. But the idea of putting out this giant vibrational signal, because we don't just create our own reality. If we did, we'd slam into each other like bumper cars. It'd be a giant mess. Everybody doing their own thing and just overlapping and intersecting and running into each other. We co-create our reality. We all throw our vibe into the melting pot of reality. Reality kicks back whatever it can that is the most balance of that. And so in our shamanic practice, we want to invoke or evoke the emotions. We want to tie in all of the parts of the self, get breathing, get thinking, hold a focus, get the energy going. The only reason a rain dance works is because it's a dance. Because there's drumming and there's chanting and you're dancing and you get the entire group of people worked up into this frenzy-like state, and then this one person gives it a focus. Rain. That's a big, you get 100 people doing that, that's a lot of energy going out towards something. It's not surprising that within the next week or so, it rains. And that's the other thing we got to look at in all of this. When you're dealing with what most people call subtle energies, vibrational pattern, frequency, that sort of thing, you have to realize that the moment that you're in right now has already been created. We can't have a different experience than the one we're having right now because we already created this one. If you're wanting something that is different than how your life is, you have to start creating now for it to appear there. You have to get out ahead of it for it to manifest. You have to intersect with what it is that you put out there at some point. And so this moment's already been created, so you guys are out of luck. You're in it for this right now. But the idea of taking all of these tools, the energies, and connecting with spirit in this way, it has a kind of a yin-yang approach. There's a push-pull that goes with it, and this is another distinction of shamanism versus, say, healer or psychic or any of these types of terms. A healer is somebody who directs energy specifically for the sake of healing. Sounds very obvious, right? Psychic, somebody who does readings and gives information and guidance, this sort of a thing. Healing is a push. A reading is a pull. In psychic work, in intuitive work, you're in a receptive mode. You're in very feminine energy. You're in that receptive state of being. When you're in healing mode, then you're in more of that masculine, transmissive energy where you're trying to radiate it out into the world. When we're talking about manifesting things, which I'll always go back to because that's what we're all doing all the time, we just do it unconsciously most of the time. The best analogy I've ever heard, has anybody here ever thrown an actual boomerang? In yet another example, if Shane's the only one in the room who's done the thing, if you throw a boomerang, you throw it and it comes back, right? Unless it is perfectly still, perfect conditions, and a perfect throw, it comes back over here, or over there, or over there. And so if you think about your intention, expectation, what you're manifesting, throwing that boomerang out, intuition says take 2 steps to the left and you'll be able to catch it because it's going to land over there. The thing you put out there isn't going to come right back to you. You're going to have to shift, you're going to have to change, you're going to have to change yourself in some regard, transform where you are, how you are, whatever, to be able to receive the thing that you put out there. In that moment, we're practicing shamanism, because shamanism is that push-pull. Shamanism is the, I will reach into the spirit world, I will bring back what's there. I will take out what's wrong with the person, I will put in the good energy that's there. We will take away what is the affliction, we will try to put in what is the remedy in whatever regard, and that goes with everything we do there. If you look at a psychic, I'm using a lot of terms, but if you look at a psychic person doing a reading, that's purely a receptive, and then the transmissive is they're talking to you, they're telling you the stuff that they get there. In the more shamanic approach to it, it's an actual going out into the spirit world to, some people call it the Akashic Record, some people call it the Hall of Knowledge, some people call all sorts of different terms. Going to the source, going to the connection point of all things. You can call that God, you can call that whatever you want to. Connecting with that source of all things and bringing back whatever it is that's needed in that regard, that's much more the shamanic approach to things than the other way would be. How does one become a shaman? This is, I know that I offend a lot of people with my very rigid, narrow-minded approach to life. Most people aren't shamans, and most people aren't going to be shamans, and I am so aggravated with my own self. Please note this is the first plug for the upcoming shaman training that I'm doing. I hated even calling it shaman training. I'd rather call it medicine person training, because that would be a lot more accurate. It would be a lot more authentic. One of the reasons I am very rigid in my attitude about shamans is Barb, spirit woman, when she was helping my mother, one day looks at me, I was 12, she says, "You're a reincarnated shaman and you need to continue your work in this lifetime." And I laughed because the funny lady was funny. And I was 12 and I was getting all of the attention, so it was really cool. And that kept going, and she kept teaching me stuff, and then I would tell her things that happened and she'd tell me what that was all about. And then we started talking about things when I was a kid, and she'd go, "Well, that's when you astral projected, and that's when you did this, and that's when you did that," all sorts of stuff. 20 years later, doing readings, doing healing work. Notice I'm calling myself 2 different things there. Doing all this work, studying with all these different people. Hilltop has come, all of this sort of stuff. I'm now doing the psychic fair circuit. Just say no. Let's talk about your deepest, darkest problems in a room with 200 of your closest friends. What the hell? It was good training. It was very good for me. Do all of this sort of stuff. We get up to this point, and I finally come out for the second time in my life, this time as a shaman. And I actually claimed it. I actually claimed that title. I claimed that, I felt like I had finally worked long enough that I deserved it. That 20 years had been on donations. I'd never actually charged anybody anything for my work at that point. And so I thought, well, by now, I've earned it. I'll call myself that. It shifted everything. It really changed the entire way that my peer group responded to me. It changed my approach to life. The ownership of things that we work towards, we should do a whole workshop on that one. It eventually lands you in a great big place like this, surrounded by wonderful people who do really cool things. You should really follow those dreams. It actually works out sometimes, if you'll let it. The shamanic path can be one that is chosen. And even though I'm saying there's a big distinction there, the reason I say that is I know more than one person that's gone on a trip to Mexico and they've come back as a shaman. It's like, no, you went to a retreat and they flipped some water in your face. That's what happened. We were there. I have seen people that have taken online classes. There were no certifications when I was coming up. You can actually take a class nowadays and become a shaman. It's a cool thing. Traditionally, that would be being recognized by your tribe. And when I say tribe, I really don't mean that insulting. Whatever your group of people is, whatever your circle is, if that's borrowing a word that I shouldn't be, I don't know. The idea of being recognized by your people, whoever that is. I refer to myself as an urban shaman. I grew up in modern age. This is my iPad that I'm looking at my notes on. You're going to book things very soon on the Sage Studio app called the Urban Shaman app, because the other was already taken. Should be coming out in about a week or so. That would be the second shameless plug today. Keep score. There will be a test later, because if you don't know these things, I'm going to have to repeat all of them. That's how it works. The idea of urban shaman is because I do things modern. I don't live out on the prairie. I'm not hunting for my food. I'm not indigenous at all. I am as white as you can get. But I grew up with people who wanted an intermediary between themselves and the spirit world. I work with an eclectic group of people because I grew up in the United States, and even though we seem to have forgotten it, when I was a kid, we referred to it as the melting pot because we were all supposed to come together, share everything, and it'd be this amazing cultural exchange. I wish we could get back to that. It was a much cooler time in some ways. I'm getting old enough. I can say stuff like that. Now, when the group recognizes you, when that is how you're selected, then I think it is one of the coolest ways, because you're definitely in service to your people. If your people are coming to you and saying, we recognize this in you, do this for us, and you step in and say, okay, yes, I will. That's service. That's absolutely stepping into service, and I think that's absolutely amazing. One of the other ways that it happens is a traumatic experience that's known as a shaman's death. Old school. Bit by a rattlesnake and you survive. Struck by lightning and you lived through it. You know, shouldn't have eaten the buffalo that sat there too long and you made it. Whatever it was traumatic, life-threatening, you know, big deal. You know, some people attacked by a bear and survive. You know, this is what life was in some of the groups we're talking about. Now you go to other parts of the world, it's going to be different characters and different stories and different stuff like that, but same idea. In our more modern way, a lot of my trauma, and this, I always hate this part of the conversation because it sounds like, oh, poor pitiful me, I'm fine. Growing up gay in Missouri, the rejection from my father and a lot of my family because I'm different. It wasn't a traumatic moment. There is definitely a quality of trauma that went in there. And the reason I equate them is because if you're struck by lightning, there's a little bit of a loss of the self in that moment. It's a big reset and you don't really know who you are in that moment and you got to kind of come back from it. My childhood and upbringing, the circumstances of it, there was a point where I lost myself. I didn't know who I was. When I was looking in the mirror, I didn't know who that weird, pathetic guy was that was looking back at me, and that was the thing I came back from. And so that's sort of a cumulative trauma versus, you know, the rattlesnake bite. But I think in our modern age, we need to look at that because we have dangers. We don't have the dangers that people have had. You know, you're living out in the wilds of India and there's like a tiger. Well, that's a little bit different than what we're dealing with today. But that doesn't mean our traumas aren't real. That doesn't mean that we don't have depression and anxiety and a lot of environmental things, and we all have challenges of different types and various things that hit us. And then there are the big diseases, or sometimes the death of a family member or a loved one can be so traumatic, or if we're going to go there, every pet I lose, I think I start over.
Yeah.
And so I just keep getting more.
Yeah.
Don't know how to stop myself. So the idea of becoming a shaman is, there's a lot of different ways to do it. The distinction between shaman and medicine people, this will probably be one of the biggest things you're going to hear me harp on over and over. Medicine to people like me means anything that makes something better. And so a hug from a friend, good medicine. Chemotherapy when you're fighting stage 4 cancer, good medicine. When you're taking that vitamin that your body doesn't produce right, or when you're taking lithium that your body doesn't produce right, good medicine. When you go to Sunday dinner and everybody is smart enough not to talk about politics, good medicine. When you have something that uplifts you, enriches you, gives you something more, makes you better than you were, helps the situation, anything that makes it gooder, that's medicine. And we want to expand out our perception of that, because in the shamanic approach and the medicine person approach, it's not just about your physical body. If somebody comes to me and they start talking about the doctors diagnosed them with congestive heart failure, I'm going to ask them why they never felt loved. Both heart chakra.
Yep.
The ones that get me are the ones that turn around, they think they've got me, and they'll be like, no, I know that I'm loved. I'll be like, so how hard is it for you to express love? Gotcha now. Whatever, Louise Hay, have we all read the Louise Hay book? It's wonderful. You Can Heal Your Life. It's a great book. Once you get the basic concept, you don't need the book. Whatever part of your body you're looking at, wherever the ailment is, that's it. My Aunt Millie is one that I like to talk about with that. She was my great aunt, actually. She died of cancer. She had cancer through her entire body. She was literally eaten up with cancer when she died. Millie was a school teacher back in the 60s. She probably actually started in the 50s if I'm getting my math right in my head. Wilma was another school teacher. For 9 months out of the year, they were co-workers. For 3 months out of the year, they had a little ranch house in another state, and they were a married couple. In a time that they would have lost their job, they would have been run out of town, things would not have gone good, just total thing. She was consumed with all of that by the end of her life. The cancer was literally consuming her entire being. And you could see the direct parallel of it. I can't mention Millie without telling the cool story. This is one of my favorite. This is like, a lot of people are like, why do you believe the way you do? Because the shit I've seen. Millie's in bed. We all know that she's at the end, you know, and she was like a major figure. She was the first person that taught me to shoot a gun. Cool old aunt. And very much a stickler. She was a school teacher. And you guys remember the glory, glory, hallelujah, teacher hit me with a ruler, all of the ridiculous lines to the song. Oh, you didn't do that around her. She would take you back and you had to sing every word the right way because that's how the song actually went. She was like that, and also just love. So we walk into the hospital. She's laying in bed and she's singing a hymn. I think it was Amazing Grace, it's my favorite. She's singing a hymn. And she's obviously singing it with somebody. And she stops and she looks at us. She looks back up at them. There's nobody here. And she goes, well, we can't leave yet. They're not ready. And the nurse comes over and takes her hand and says, oh, no, Millie, they're here to pick you up. You go on with them and I'll get everybody ready and we'll follow behind. And she died. She was going with whoever that was she was singing with. And so, yeah, it's a sad story, and she was ate up with cancer, and there was a reason because of the emotions and all of that sort of stuff. But in that last moment, she proved to me there was a spirit world. She was not going to leave because we weren't all ready, and that's exactly who she was. Everybody's ready for church, or nobody walked out the door. It's one of those things. And so I've had so many opportunities to see those things, and the original point I was on, medicine, anything that makes things better. And so a medicine person is somebody who is aware of the energy that the circumstance, the substance, the practice, the words, the food, the whatever is going to have on somebody. If you want to practice good medicine, take up baking. You guys have heard me tell the story, but I can't leave it out. Frida's, I don't know, how old is Frida? I ask how old Frida is every time, and every time I keep making her older and older. She's old. I'm loud. Frida's really loud because she can't hear you. Frida is awesome. Last time I saw her, she sat down and she goes, what is my purpose in life? I think she's got to be like 80. And I was like, I don't know, Frida, what do you do every day? Gets up every day and bakes a batch of brownies. Puts them in a big Ziploc bag because you never know when you're going to run across somebody that's having a bad day that needs some brownies.
There you go.
Then makes it a point to hold the door open wherever she is for 5 random strangers and to compliment 5 people that she doesn't know. I was like, what the hell do you mean? What is your purpose? To be an example for how the rest of us should live? That's what your purpose is, obviously. You want to practice good medicine? Hold the door open for somebody. Bake something for somebody. My neighbors, Brian and Mary, I literally live in a circumstance where I will go and borrow a cup of sugar from my neighbor, and they're thrilled because they know they're getting cookies later. This is actually the world I live in. We do not return empty dishes to one another. Here's the soup I made, Mary. Here's the banana bread I made in the same dish for you. This is just the way we go back and forth. That's good medicine. It'll make you healthier, it'll make you live longer, it'll make the life that you live more worth living longer, which is the bigger deal, by the way. Getting to the point where you understand what medicine means and what being a medicine person means. Anybody can be a medicine person. Maybe shaman, maybe not, but anybody can be a medicine person. Anybody can live in the awareness of, are they elevating the situation that they are presently in? That's all it is. It's really that simple. Are you making things better? And it doesn't have to be monumental. Yoga class this morning, which I'm looking around, several of you should have been in, by the way. I think we're up to 3 now. We were talking about how we talk about transforming our life or changing our lives, or let's expand it out. We want to change the world, we want to transform things. That seems really overwhelming. That seems like a big, big, big thing. We'll use the same example here that we used this morning. You all could be out doing whatever. You chose to come here to learn about this. You have already done something to transform yourself. Is this going to change your entire life? I don't know. Depends what you do with it. But is it a transformational moment? You're going to learn something. You're going to get something out of the moment. You're going to be doing something different with your time than you would have been otherwise. You got to see these shorts. There's something going on that is different than you would have had otherwise. And so if you look at that and go, I'm transformed, I've already changed. That wasn't the most monumental thing, but imagine if you started stacking a bunch of those up. What if you start gaining some momentum? What if that transformation led to the next one? You decided that that felt good too, and well, I got a roll going now, I may as well go for 3. And you get that, and it starts feeling really good, and it becomes automatic, and it becomes your natural way of being, and then before too long, you're like a freight train of goodness, just knocking over all the bad shit everywhere. And I think that that's what we should all really be striving for, because if we want a better world, I'm not even talking about saving the planet. I want a better world for me. Selfishly, I want to live in a better world. I want happier, I want friendlier, I want nicer, and the best way to get there is probably being happier, friendlier, and nicer. And putting as much of that out there as you can and recognizing it wherever you can. Most of you are in here for the speech. I'm all about calling people out. I have no problem sniping out the shit that I think is wrong. I don't think that that's being bad or negative. I think we've got to fill in so much good though. I think that's how we get a momentum of change going. That's good medicine. The other thing about shamans that is a distinguishing point is the idea of altered states. I probably don't ever go 2 weeks at a time. I'd say usually about every week. I get asked if I offer ayahuasca ceremonies. I get asked if we could do peyote out of a peace pipe. If you knew how many things were wrong with that one statement. The sacred chanupa is not used for smoking peyote, sorry. And the only reason it's called a peace pipe is because it was taken to the treaties with the US as a symbol of peace. And we all saw how that worked out. So we're gonna keep it as the sacred pipe. But the idea of altered states is very much a shamanic tradition, is very much a normal thing. I'm going to go off on this tangent, but because of the laws, because of the rules, because of the fact that I would like to keep this business open, no, none of these things are available today, sorry. Ayahuasca is an amazing transformative ceremony and process. If it is not taken as a ceremony and process, then it's a really, really lousy way to party. You get sick, you get violently ill, you really kind of die a little bitty baby death, and you come back from it, and it's one of the most amazing things that could ever happen to you. LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, such things as that, used party-wise for tripping, used in a medicinal way and used in a very therapeutic way, can actually open up consciousness to the other dimensions, the other realms, the other states of consciousness, altered states of being. I tend to go on at least one vision quest a year. I usually eat mushrooms when I go on it. Because it actually aids the process of what it is I'm doing. And I want you to get what I'm saying. That's not, Shane's out partying for the weekend. That is, here are my prayers, and here's my smudging, and here's my sacred pipe, and here is this, and now finally I'm to that, and here's the meditation that goes with it, and here's the breath practice, and here's all of that sort of stuff, and here's the integration work I'm going to do the next day to bring what I pulled out there, shamanic, we go reach, bring it back. You got to then integrate that with the world here, otherwise you're really just partying and calling it sacred, and that's not really the point. And so altered states of consciousness, very, very big in shamanism, and I completely, wholeheartedly, 100% endorse them personally. I think it's very much a personal choice. Do I think it's a requirement? No. We have an entire wellness center where we get people there another way. And I want you to get that binaural beats, drumming, various breath practices, yoga, let's get back to that one. All of these things put you into an altered state of consciousness. I talk about yoga, but seriously, we have a phrase around here after a really strong class, and everybody is like, I'm going, yeah, this is the part where you get up off your mats and leave? You know, and I go and turn on the light and everything. And you see everybody sort of walking around like this. We call it yoga stoned because it actually releases all the dopamine, all of the different endorphins, everything's flowing through the body. The body is an amazing chemical factory, and it does shift your state of being. If it didn't, why bother doing it? I think that if you find a church that find a preacher or a group that really talks to you, they talk your language. For me, I know this will sound ridiculous. For me, you get me to a really, really good Southern Baptist church when they're not having an anti-gay moment.
Yeah.
The songs are the best. That energy's the best. And potluck, there's good food. The idea of really getting into a group that feeds you that energy that's there, if you go to a church and you don't leave in an altered state of consciousness, go to the next one until you find one that flips that circuit inside of you. Why would you pursue anything that had significant meaning in your life? Why would you be in a relationship that didn't grant you a certain state of euphoria? Why would you be in a relationship that didn't alter your state of being for the better? Why would you do that? Why? And I don't just mean your romantic loving partner, I mean everybody in your life. Why are they there if they drag you down? Why are they there if they don't uplift you? Why do you have people in your life that are not good medicine? Why would we allow that to happen? We want to constantly be altering our state back towards the good. Now that doesn't mean ramp up, ramp up, ramp up, ramp up, ramp up. The very nature and the fabric of existence is life will knock you back down. The next challenge will come. The next thing that makes it hard to stay in that place will come. I give Jan credit on this one every time I think of it. I brought it up in class just the other night. Get yourself to a good place, defend it with everything you've got. I wish everybody would get that in their head. Whatever a good place means to you. I don't just mean hee happy, that's not a good place, that's called manic. Getting to a good place where you feel centered, you feel purposeful, you feel like your life makes a certain amount of sense. There are going to be problems, challenges, and difficulties because that's what life is, but you feel equipped for them. You feel like you could handle them. You feel like you could actually deal with whatever's there, and you can find some joy in that moment as well. You've already realized that the cup's gonna break and it doesn't bother you anymore. When you get to that state of being, you're living in what's called a state of ecstasy from a shamanic perspective. That trance state that people are going for with the psilocybin, the things that people are trying to get to through the ayahuasca ceremony and all of this, these different altered states of being, this is trying to step into what's called an ecstatic trance. Now, trance is a little bit misleading because most people think trance is, Shane's left the building. And it happens. That is a full out, unconscious trance state. Usually takes a certain level of hypnosis, can be achieved through chemical means, and is a very, very, very controlled, deep, altered brainwave state. So somewhere between that, so like here's unconscious, here's that, right in this, so here's wide awake and living. In here is the ecstatic trance state. And that can be from a relaxed, deep state, in yoga where we get to in Shavasana at times, if you have meditation practice where you sometimes land in your meditational practice. When you're in that you don't know why, I just feel connected zone state of being, we all have that moment that it just feels right. When you're in that moment, that's the ecstatic trance state. And in shamanism, we use that to connect with Mother, Father. You'll hear Great Mystery, Great Spirit, lots of different words to mean God, the universe. We usually have a duality with it in shamanism because we don't like leaving the feminine aspect out because that makes no damn sense. God got us at a bare minimum. Universe is wonderful because it's so gender neutral. I think that it's an important part to bring in both aspects of it, and you'll see that in the symbolism when we get to the tools here in just a little bit. Happens over and over and over again. In the ecstatic trance, I want to talk about this just one more moment, and I'm going to show you how simple it is to practice a shamanic technique. These are very, very, very easy things. There's a book called Ecstatic Trance Postures. I think we're up to 4th or 5th now, I'm losing count. Those of us who do yoga in this very room, because we know it's good for us, put ourselves in physical positions because the energy flows different. Now the church would want you to believe that so we can be possessed by demons. I've said it before, if you get possessed by a demon, your membership is free. If you've got a demon that travels along with you, bring it with you. We won't charge you for that class because you've already done the hard work yourself. We like to accommodate everybody here as much as we can. But we put ourselves in these positions so we can channel those energies. We do tree pose so we can be up tall like a tree. We do mountain pose so we're solid and steady like a mountain. We do warrior pose because we are the warrior, we're the victor. All of those poses have a specific energy. The Sanskrit language is even written that way. They're supposed to hold an energy. So if you're doing warrior one and you're not feeling like a warrior, I make a joke about it all the time. Chair pose. Chair pose is also known as fierce pose. And I'll always make the joke, well, we got to stay here until it gets fierce. It will. Trust me. If not, come to class. Find out. 6, 7, where are we at? So I want you to think about if we had one place that we were at in life and we wanted to get to another place in life. And we considered where we are now to be one world we live in. And we considered the other state of being a different world. When we would picture our knees as the two worlds. We don't need anything. We don't need any we are the tool. And then we would take and we would bridge them so that we were connecting them. Then we would just go into a meditative, breath, contemplative state. The idea of ecstatic trance is there's no big deal to the trance. There's no big deal at all. You go into this and you contemplate the idea that I am connecting those things that are there. We're all going to do a couple of them that I love. We're going to do grandmother, grandfather. Stand up, please. Symbology is very, very obvious in this. Grandmother or mother would be receptive. It's feminine. I don't like it when people say feminine as passive because I don't believe that. Yes. Like at all. I do think receptive is a very appropriate term. And so if we take the feet wide and we sort of drop down into the knees a little bit. So we've got hips open, we've got knees open. We want to take the arms away and the palms are face out. And then this is where it gets fun. We want to be, because everything is open. And so we're actually opening every part of the body. So that would be the receptive. And in that, you're drawing in universal energy. You're opening up every single part of yourself to draw in all of the universal energies that you possibly can.
Chakras as well.
Yeah, that's the opening up here. The opening up all the gateways that are there. If we wanted to turn that into grandfather or father energy, which would be much more that transmissive, I don't like active and passive, but transmissive, radiating, then we would bring everything in close, closing it. We don't want to cut off circulation, but we'd be a little bit more rigid in the legs. We tuck the tailbone a little bit more, really rigid up here. We're going to keep the arms in close, we're going to close this way, and we're going to drop the chin down. Really just embodying the two different things. And if we don't get that this is more feminine and this is more masculine, stay after class. There's one other I wanted to show you that I just studied this one today because I was like, what's one that I didn't know? And I was flipping through and I love this one because it is so terrible posture. If you just sort of hunker over like this, and you just take your hands like this, we're all bears. And the idea is you actually take this ball of energy and start rolling it around just to develop that feel of what's there. And if you take the time to do this and breathe a little, take the time and breathe and all this stuff for a little while, you actually will get to where you feel that way. And the reason I wanted to share the bear one is because everybody got that. Everyone's like, okay, what are we doing? Bear. And it was like, oh yeah, okay, I see it now. The reason that I wanted to do that one is because in a little bit we're going to talk about animal totems. And we could actually mimic any animal totem that we wanted in some form or fashion. You all just did a bear and you've never done it before. You're already experts. And so we could do this with anything that we wanted to. And it gives us a way to connect energetically to what it is that we're doing. It allows us to step into that ecstatic trance vibe that we're talking about with that. The Bridging Two Worlds is a good one. The other one that I like is really just being like this, because we all have a higher ideal. This hand's just hanging down here. We all have a higher ideal of how our life should be, and we all have the world that we're actually living in. And if we think about the idea that we are the connection point, we're actually holding both of those realities. And the problem is that most of us think we're holding this one down here. We're very well aware we're holding on to this life we're living. We think we're reaching for this. Why would you reach for it? Why wouldn't you hold it? Let's go into another aspect of shamanism. Those are my favorite things to say here. Most energetic practitioners, witches, or a lot of other types of practices, none of which I have a problem with, there's just a distinction. They're trying to harness or use an energy or an element. In shamanism, you become it. You become the embodiment of it. If I'm trying to embrace the element of air, which for me governs our thoughts, a lot of people would be like, I'm going to go outside and feel the wind blow in my face. I'm going to go outside and feel the wind blow through me until I am part of that wind. When I go out into the rain, which Shane's over the house a lot, she knows every now and then a storm's coming in, Shane's got to grab a rattle and a staff and go out in the yard, and there's a whole big bank of clouds with a shit ton of energy bubbling over there. I got to put some thoughts into that and let it rain down everywhere. It's a good one. I go out there, am I going to let that stuff fall on me and roll off after I went to all that trouble? No, I want that rain to fall through me to the world that I live in. Through me to the world that I live in. It's wonderful trance posture. Now, if you practice pranayama, breath practices, if you have a regular meditation practice, if you have a music or something that really gets you to that state, because we all have our different triggers. If you, triggers, in a good word. It's an amazing thing. If you actually allow those things to be there while you're holding one of these images, things that's there, it will take it to that deeper state that at first it feels like, okay, so I'm resting with my arms on my lap. What's this supposed to do? You get that other part going with that intention, that purpose, and a little bit of faith and belief, and suddenly there's a thing happening. And as with all great spiritual practices, it doesn't happen the first time. We have a running joke about going to the gym, doing one sit-up, and you don't have abs. You got to keep it up. You got to keep doing the thing. You've got to become the thing. If you want more wealth in your life, you need to become more wealthy within yourself. You need to find more self-worth. You need to find more self-value. You need to start acting like you are the high-ticket item in the room. You need to start expecting that things are going to flow into your life that way. If you want to be healthy, you have to become the embodiment of that. Not just mentally, emotionally, but eat the right food. Exercise for the love of God. Do something that makes you healthier. Take your meds. Whatever it is that you need to be doing, there are plenty of ways to shift back to this. And like I said, life's going to pull you out. We're constantly trying to get back to this. And if an ecstatic trance, a couple times a week, start your day out with this, hit this before you go to bed, allow yourself some sort of practice to get into it, you begin to slowly nudge your life over in that direction that you want it to be. As I said, shamans have existed throughout time, whole world over. One of the biggest things that you'll see is the carryover, the rattle and the drum. are global. Part of that is because they're a very simple construct. You're going to be able to put them together almost anywhere you want to be. I love using the next one as an example. We're using the other bowl as a different thing right now, but you'll still get the idea. That smudge mix right there with the blue feathers sticking out of it, that's the traditional smudge mix that I've made for 40 years. The crystal in there was given to me by a friend. I sat on the last 5 days of her life. The shell was given to me by another shaman that's passed. The feathers are from a bird that's buried out on my mother's property. That whole thing has tie to the spirit world, tie to the spirit world, tie to the spirit world. And then the tradition, I've made that same smudge and taken some of the old and put in the new every time. That goes back to the medicine woman that taught me and back into her tribe for probably hundreds, thousand years, whatever. And so it carries a big energetic signature and a tradition that's with it and all this sort of stuff. If you were more of a Mexican shaman, if you were much more down where red clay and dirt and stuff grew, you would probably have more of a ceramic type bowl that you would use instead of the Pacific Northwest where you could actually get abalone. You would want to use various different things. This bowl here, probably my favorite of all of my bowls. That one was very specifically curated at Gordman's. It's just a bowl until I pick it up, then it's a tool of change and transformation. That's the way it works. Side note on that, you know you picked the right husband when there's two different sizes and he's like, you know you're going to get both of them, just go ahead. That's how you know you married the right person. See, a little marriage counseling thrown in. Full service shaman. That bowl was probably hand tooled in a factory somewhere trying to keep the edges rough so it looks natural. They probably went to a lot of work to make it look like they didn't work it. I don't care if you use a Tupperware bowl for your sacred ritual. I had somebody not long ago in our last workshop, I had talked about, we were doing elements, and I talked about going to Wendy's and getting a little water cup, getting a salt packet, and getting the knife as my athame, and doing this whole blessing and putting together the salt water, so all the stuff from Wendy's that was there. You know, you set out the napkin like I've done here, lovely altar that you can make, all that sort of stuff. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It does not matter. In high ceremonial magic, in very highbrow stuff, you must have the certain herb that was picked under this phase of the moon on this day of the week at this particular time, and you must dry it and blah, 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 and only this knife. Chaos, which is what I embrace, is you use whatever the heck makes you think of the thing, and you use whatever's available. You know, in tradition, you would have one knife for gathering herbs and chopping things up and working things, and you'd have another one purely for ceremony. Or maybe you were the poor person that had a knife and you used it for everything. It isn't the knife that does it. It isn't that bowl that does it. It isn't the rattle that does it until you pick it up with purpose and intention and you infuse it with your energy, and it becomes an extension of you because you're an extension of the divine. When you begin to see that you are the tool of your soul self, and that this tool is connecting with that tool, and it's actually your soul that is using the rattle and infusing it with the power that we're talking about, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're actually going to move some energy. Now something's actually going to occur, because that's the way that stuff actually works. My tradition is, mine, like I invented it, is called the 7-direction path. We work with the elements and we work with the directions, air, earth, fire, and water. Air is north, that's our thoughts. East is earth, that's our words. South is fire, that's our actions. And west is water, that's our beliefs or our emotions. And the belief is that when you get all 4 of those things in alignment, then you're in vibrational integrity, your energy is aligned on all parts of your expression out into the world. And what you put out there is going to have a really big impact. You're going to shift reality in a very big way. The earth below us is the mother, sky above us is the father, and the 7th direction is within. And it always amazes me, people can't get within on their own. The most important direction of all. And people are like, I can get to 6. I don't know where that 7th one is. The within is the big, big, big deal. That's where you actually want all of the stuff to happen. And so when you get to working with the 7-direction path, the reasons I like that whole concept is it's blending all of the elements that represent creation. It's bringing thoughts, words, actions, and beliefs into alignment. It's honoring the mother, it's honoring the father, the feminine, the masculine, whatever words we want to use there. And it's acknowledging the within, but it's acknowledging that there is no place that doesn't touch us, and there's no place that we don't touch. It leaves nothing out. Completely surrounded, completely encapsulated, completely infused, in, through, and all around me. And when you get to that idea of in, through, and all around me, then you start asking the questions. Is happiness in, through, and all around me? If not, I should probably change that if I want to be happy. Is health in, through, and all around me? Am I allowing healthy things to come into myself? Am I radiating healthy things out? Am I surrounded by healthy things? And if not, what are the unhealthy things that I should get rid of? And so when you start approaching that 7-direction path, everything in your world touches you. There's such common sense things. I love common sense in the middle of all of the outlandish. You could eat the most bland, easily digestible, absolute healthiest thing in the entire world, while somebody is screaming in your face that you're a worthless piece of crap, and I guarantee you will have indigestion. I guarantee you'll end up with a stomach ache, irritable bowel, something's going to happen. Perfectly easily digestible food. We've all been to perfectly wonderful events, and there's been that one person that's decided, nope. And they might not have anything to do with the thing that's actually going on. And yet that thing affects it. The toe bone's connected to the soul bone. What you do to any one part of yourself, you do to the totality of yourself. Everything affects everything. And I think this is one I'm gonna bring in Scott. I always have to compliment him at some point, and then 2 sentences later, here I am bashing the poor boy. His hardest struggle is that he's got quite a bit of ADHD. He borders into autism a little bit. Didn't get diagnosed until very late in life. And he lives so much inside of his own self that he actually does not comprehend that his actions affect other people. Our biggest conflicts, I'll be like, what the heck? And he's like, that has nothing to do with you. I'm like, I'm the only one in the room. Scott's one of those people who'll get mad and he'll start yelling about something like, why are you yelling at me? It's like, I'm not yelling at you. I'm like, I'm the only one here. I don't know who you're mad at. Only person in the room is me. Oh, but that wasn't about you. I was just mad about this thing, and I was just... Okay, are you connecting the dots yet? And that goes through everything with him. Good things, positive things. He will sit there and tell himself a joke and laugh about it, and he'd be like, what? Oh no, just something I thought was funny. Which was? And he doesn't think that affects anybody else. And because of that, Scott is one of those bumper cars that runs into things all over the place. And I just try to nudge him in the right direction as much as we can. But we all have to get to the point where we realize we affect everything and everything affects us. One of my favorite stories of all times, when Mom was going through the cancer treatments, we're there now. She's literally fighting for her life. She's at stage 4 lymphoma. We are fighting the good fight at this point. We're in the waiting area, and when you go for chemo, you go to one waiting area so you can wait for another waiting room, so that you can go to the other waiting room, so that you can finally go into the chemo place. And we're in the first one. And this poor woman who's having a bad day is yelling at the person who clearly drove her there and is sitting with her, consoling her. Why won't anybody come with me to these treatments? Why do I have to do this by myself? It's ridiculous that nobody will support me. I can't believe nobody cares about me. And this person's just like... Finally points over to the reception area and is like, they can hear you. They're behind that glass. They can't hear me. And the people behind the glass are like... We get to waiting room 2. That woman had infected the entire group. Because in the time we sat down, some other lady pipes up, can you believe that woman out there? Ranting and raving, and we're all here doing it. Can you believe she's going? It just gets louder and louder and madder, face twisted up. My mother, in this very calm, quiet voice, she is fighting for her life. Goes, well, and you know when somebody gets really quiet, everybody's like, she goes, well, I'm sure she's doing the best that she can, and we don't really know what she's going through. She's probably just trying to make it through like the rest of us. And then just smiles. This giant, 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 sweet smile. And then just folds her hands in her lap. Well, yeah, you know, you're probably right. And yep, you know, we should all be, and within 5 minutes, the entire room is laughing. One person's bad attitude had corrupted the entire direction this group was going. And my mom makes one little statement and smiles real big, and everything shifts back to this other way. Everything touches everything, everything affects everything else. Bad medicine in the waiting room, good medicine in the smile. We all have the power to affect things, and we all have to realize everything does affect us. Finally, we get to the thing that anybody cared about. What's all the stuff on the floor, Shane? The tools of shamanism. They're unlimited. The things that I have gathered here are the things that I use in everyday stuff here. This is stuff I use with my clients. These are things I use personally. A lot of these things I've had for a very long time. Some of them brand new, just got them recently. I'm gonna run through, I've got a list here to try and keep me focused. The drum, this would be what most people think about when we talk about it. This is called a buffalo drum. This style of drum is typical. Drums come in every shape and size and description and everything else. One of the reasons that I like this and the traditional that you will see, and you can see it in my bowl and rattle, you can see it in the smudge, you can see it repeated over and over in the symbolism. Feminine, masculine. We're bringing the two aspects of creation together and expecting something to be born out of it, expecting to birth something out of it. We bring the feminine and the masculine together. That's what we expect to happen. You'll see it here. The bowl is the womb of creation. The rattle is the phallus of creation. You will see those symbols repeated over and over and over and over and over in every culture, because that's how things basically work. And so even the rattle itself, if you look at the rattle, there's a bulbous part and there is the staff that is stuck into it. The pipe itself, I didn't bring my stem from home, I forgot it. The sacred pipe, the head of the pipe is separate and it represents the mother. The stem of the pipe is separate and represents the father. And you only put them together as a sacred act of union to symbolize those two aspects coming together in a divine union. And so the symbology goes over and over and over again. If you get to where you're doing big stuff, and you have a group, you get to where you have things like a powwow drum. We'd have people all the way around this. You could have as many people as you could fit, as many sticks as you could get, and not everybody has to hit at the same time. It gets very interesting and creative as you get going there. The drum is the heartbeat of the mother. There's a wonderful story from Native American belief that when the mother becomes dry and barren and depleted, then we take up the drum to represent her heartbeat. And the heartbeat calls out to Sky Father, and you can hear him answering back from the thunder. And then he rolls in, and lightning is the love making, and then he shares the water with the mother, and then life returns again. And it's that sacred love making that is repeated again and again and again. And so we use the drum for our heartbeat to call out to spirit, to call out to that divine presence, to call out to that thing that we believe is bigger than us, that is going to step in and intervene and make life different and change things for us in some regard. The rattle is used to direct energy. I don't know that anybody else would explain it this way, but I really look at it as being able to throw energy at people. It gets it there quicker than anything. You can use this as a way of directing energy. This specific one, I keep on the arm of my chair in my room where I do my readings with clients. And if I get somebody that is stubborn and won't listen, I pick it up and shake it at them. Usually resets the conversation. You'd be amazed. Directing the energy through a rattle, one of the reasons that I think that it's very powerful, and the drum as well, is we are all used to receiving frequencies through an auditory source. We are used to sounds shifting our state of consciousness. We put on the music to match the mood that we're in. We chant the mantra that holds the energy we're wanting to do. We talk in the tone that conveys the message we're trying to get across. We allow auditory frequencies and all of that to affect us, so auditory tools have a great impact on people. That's why we've got chakra tones and gongs and rain sticks and all sorts of stuff around here, because you may not have noticed, I tend to be very auditory. I use sound as my way of moving energy a lot. And I do it through talking, I do it through chanting, I do it through all sorts of things. And if we get to the tools in that same regard, they will do that same thing. I was wondering when I was going to work this one in. You guys, I'm glad that wasn't the coffee. You guys will wonder why I felt the need to work this in. This is a Mayan shaman's whistle that I got on our trip to Mexico last October. This is one of the biggest tourist trappy things that you're ever going to see. Because the average tourist is going to be, oh wow, cool, a whistle, and it's in the shape of a bird. This happens to be a gold eagle's beak, which was very important to the symbology that I'll explain on the trip, all of that. And people will think, wow, how cool, I got a fun whistle. No, you didn't. These whistles are used to mimic the screams of the victims of the Mayan Empire when they were drug up onto the top of the pyramid. A slit was made just below the ribs so they could reach in and take its heart out and show the beating heart to the person that they didn't sacrifice to their god. And this is to represent the wailing of all of the souls being sent to the underworld from that. Wondering why in the world did he feel the need to bring that out? Because how often am I going to get to use the thing? The reason it's in that corner is you'll notice that there's a skull there, the black bladed knife, the black rattle, and some Palo Santos. Those would all be things that I would use in a protective, banishing, warding, driving off that which is unwanted. While the symbology from the Mayans is pretty harsh, if there is some evil energy that is derailing me, I want to confront that with, I think extreme prejudice is the phrase that is used quite often. I want to hit back very strongly with that. I don't think that we can talk about angels and good spirits and light and totems and allies without admitting that there are dark forces and negativity and all of that sort of stuff. We see a division in everything else that we confront daily. Why would we not believe that spiritually as well? So a lot of people in my circles that wouldn't bother to do the research because I'm a geek and I read stuff when I find weird things. I want to know what the whistle actually does because that's the person I am. I looked it up. I was going to use that for healing ceremonies. Not anymore. Fortunately didn't before I read. Make sure you know what things are for. And again, the airport and the gift shops, full of those. Absolutely full of. I can't imagine how many thousands of those things they sell a year. And people are out playing with their whistle that actually has a very, very heavy, heavy, deep meaning. Those are all up there because it's the smudgy thing. This one I wanted to share with you. Totems, allies, are another big thing that we work with. The allies are a very traditional way to refer to them. I'm talking about your guardian angels, spirit guides, loved ones that travel with you, animal totems, elementals, deity, all of these sorts of things. And so when we went on this trip, talking shamanism, right? I had been doing this incantation, for lack of a better word, about connecting with the shamans. We land in Mexico, and I told everybody, there's a thread, that Gold Eagle, who is a Mayan spirit guide that I'd worked with, was going to be our mascot, our totem guide for this entire trip, right? So I'm calling to the shamans. I'm doing this every day. Every time I lit an incense, it was to call to the shamans. Every time I burn a candle at the house, call the shaman. Drumming, calling for the shamans, and calling some shamans here. Doing all this. We fly there, we land, get out of the plane. The first window I come to, I look down where the planes are parked. And there's a guy standing there with a gold eagle on his arm. Actual, for real, legit gold eagle. Start asking some questions. They use them to chase off the small birds so they don't get in the engines of the plane. But so what is the likelihood, evidently more than you'd think, Gold eagle is our totem. There's the symbol of it right then. I probably saw gold eagle symbology. I didn't buy that whistle. That was bought for me. Gold eagle on it. Then I get back. Jan messages me. My sister stopped by. She got this little statue for you. This is, if you look at the details, it's very Mayan. I think you can see the eagle reference to it. This is like the embodiment of the guide we asked to go on the trip as soon as we get back. Physically shows up in my world. We would call this a kachina. A kachina is a doll that represents our spirits or our totems. Fetishes. No, we did not change topics. Part of the intuition. Felt that one all the way around there. Y'all need help. Little Jesus would help every one of you. Turkey feather. If I wanted to connect with a free spirit energy, the turkey is the symbol of freedom and independence. This would be considered a fetish. A fetish is something that ties you symbolically or energetically to that thing that's there. Even though that's a doll would be or statue would be considered a kachina, that could be considered a fetish as well. The things that are attached to everything, the embellishments and those sort of things would be considered a fetish. If you wanted to connect with, I did this years ago, I was probably in my 20s. I wanted to work with buffalo totem. I was like, I need some buffalo hair. Exotic animal paradise. Pulled up right beside one of them. I said prayers and I thanked them. Peacock feathers. Got them at the same place. Finding places where I think I got porcupine quills there too, as a matter of fact. And then sometimes you'll end up with the weirdest things. Probably not as much everybody else in the room. I have been gifted everything from a 3-footed pot-bellied iron cauldron to somebody once brought me owl talons. I had owl talons in my freezer for a year trying to decide if you could really just throw something like that away or if there was bad juju connected with that. And they think they're giving you loving gifts. Anyway, back to the point. Medicine bags are a collection of different stones and herbs and various things like that we actually put in a bundle. When Mom went through the cancer, we made a great big one. When I had a tumor once on the side of my neck, a pretty big tumor that we had to have taken out, I collected a medicine bundle from all of my healer friends from all over the country. In the category of Shane can be persistent, they really didn't think that we could take that into the operating room. And when I explained that if they couldn't put that in a sealable bag and sterilize that, then I didn't want them cutting me open because obviously they didn't know what they were doing, I got to have my medicine bundle in the operating room. Bundling up the different things are there. It could be a little bag that you wear. It could be a great big bundle that you carry with you in a group setting. If we were more of a tribe or a clan or a coven or a whatever, we might have one for the entire group. All of this stuff might be bundled up to go to the next place with us because these are our sacred objects that we use. Crystals and stones. These are boji stones. They come in all different sizes. There's typically a perfectly round one and one that has a ridge. This is the female, this is the male. And they are naturally forming stones. They're caused by a meteorite that hits and it causes the iron ore to to form like this. They're called Shaman stones or thunderstones, and it's about bringing the two elements of masculine and feminine together so that you can direct that energy out. We all know stones, crystals, all of that sort of thing, used all over the place. Labradorite was a very popular shaman stone because of the flashy color that's in it. Sunstone, same reason, that sort of thing. And then sometimes we will wear things like robes made out of buffalo hide, or you might wear a mask that represents some particular energy or creature that you're trying to connect with, that sort of thing. Covered gold eagle, and working with your guides and totems. I'm going to hit this really quick because it's an entirely different workshop. If we're talking about a human form guide, for lack of a better way to put it, you know, like the way I'm going to say this. If we wanted to connect with a turkey feather, or a turkey, this would be appropriate. If I wanted to connect with more of a person type thing, that gets a little sketchy. We don't have fetishes for the people, or we are back to the other workshop. And so we want to think about developing a relationship with our guides. If you want to develop a relationship, you have to make it reciprocal. Most people can't get messages from their guides because they're waiting for some non-physical being to kick down the door of their consciousness and scream in their head so loud they can't ignore it. If you and I want to become friends, we need to text each other. We need to call each other. I need to tell you how my day is going. I need to ask you how yours is. There needs to be a reciprocal interactive thing. And even though it's a different type of relationship, all the same basic stuff applies. Barb, who trained me and taught me and all of that. The smudge mix that I make has cedar, sage, and tobacco. Most people are used to the smudge bundles. We use all three because sage drives away negativity, cedar calls in the good, and tobacco is a way of saying thank you because manners count even in the spirit world. That's what she would drive across all the time. And she's like, say please, say thank you. Don't expect help, ask for help. Tell them what help you need. If I'm going to call on my friend Ann for something, and I'm like, Ann, I need you. Well, that doesn't help anything. Ann, I need help with this and this and this. And she's like, God, you got a big list again? And you get to where you tell them what's going on. You get to where you communicate because that's what friends do. I'll tell you the other big one. You get some message, I get this every day in my office. Well, I got this message from my guide. I don't quite know what it means. Can you tell me? No, because I'm not your guide. I don't know what they meant by that. Here's an idea. If I want to be Tanner's friend and Tanner says blah, 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 and I don't understand her, the best thing as a friend I could do is be like, what the hell was that? I don't understand a word you just said. Say it again. No, not the same thing again. I didn't understand that. Say it a different way. That's what good friends do. Good friends say, I don't understand you. That doesn't make sense. I don't like the way you put that. That's what a relationship is. And so if we want to connect with them, we can't just be like, I'm waiting. That's not a good friend. That's not a relationship. So we want to actually work with those things that we're dealing with. We're going to go into, we've probably got just enough time. We're going to go into a big ceremony, a practice here, that we'll make sure everybody going to take a brief bathroom break. We're going to make sure everybody has a rattle or a drum, and everybody has a stone of some kind. And so if you don't have that, please see Jan or me, and let's all take a 5 to 10 minute break, and we'll get right back in here for our active practice of what we're doing. And that's why they'll show up. I've started out talking about manifesting reality, and one of the reasons I'm bringing that into this is I wanted to go into so many different topics, but without an understanding of what shamanism means and where it comes from, and a thing that I laugh at my own self about because I hate the lecture part of everything. When I was like, ooh, what's the stuff on the floor? That's what I would have cared about. We're too actively doing something. Okay, can we skip to that? You know, I fast forward through the lecture part and I get to the fun part of everything. But this is a topic you may not have noticed. I tend to be a fairly glib and off-the-cuff person. I embrace my irreverent reverence to spirituality. I think that we can be absolutely spiritual and not have a stick up our ass. I really do. I think that it's the appropriate approach to things. All of that said, I take this very serious. This means something to me. I will never give a talk on shamanism without talking about what it actually is, what it actually isn't, why all of that stuff matters, the stuff that isn't the, oh fun, let's shake a rattle, beat a drum, do the thing. All of that has to be in there because this is my life path. And I take part of that so seriously. And again, don't feel bad for me, I'm fine. I take all of that to a very serious point because in my perceived circles, there are a lot of con artists. There are a lot of frauds. There are a lot of people. You would be amazed how many times somebody comes in and starts telling me a story. I went to this person and I was like, was it the gypsy curse or the family karma? Oh, the gypsy curse. I was like, did they have a sign with a red paw? Yeah. Did $500 to burn special candles to lift the curse? Yeah. You know, very common. This stuff is incredibly common. Pisses me the hell off. This is something that I have absolutely devoted my life to. I genuinely want to help everybody who gets in front of me. I don't know that I do, but I really want to. I'm sincere even in my frivolity about everything that I do. I take this very seriously. We deal with real heavy topics. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm a shamanic counselor, and we deal with real life stuff. It's hard to get through a whole hour of real life stuff if you get way off into the serious. You got to have a little levity to be able to get through all of that, and I've developed that as my personality anyway. And I would rather be authentic with people. I would rather not sit behind a desk in a proper jacket so that people thought I was some authority. I would rather what I bring across have some impact on their life and gain the respect in that way. And so that's why we have the first part of the lecture. That's why we have all of that. But in that we're talking about manifesting. And manifesting, a lot of people will be like, why are you focusing on that in shamanism? We could be focused on soul retrieval journeying. We could be talking about entering into the spirit world. That is something that is very hard to do in a group, in a limited time structure, and have anybody truly get the thing out of it that they should. If anybody's interested in journey work, if anybody wants to look at soul retrieval, any of that sort of stuff, come and see me individually. I can perform it, I can teach you, we can work together on it, whatever it is you need there. The reason I'm focusing on manifesting is you're all in the middle of a life and it's happening. We should take control of that life. We should not let it just spin wildly out and whatever happens to us. Well, one of my greatest things that I ever came up with is it's far better that you happen to life than to just let life happen to you. And I think that when we get down into the energetics and start forming and molding that life, become the embodiment of the thing that we want and move it out in that direction, I think we can really begin to steer things in a way that people might not expect to come. So what we're going to do as our practice, we're going to go, I'm reading this because I made myself notes because I am terrible about that. But I don't want to leave out any of the parts. We all have a stone. That stone is going to be our talisman. The talisman is an object that holds a vibrational frequency or pattern. So what we're going to do is dial that rock into the thing that you want. Now, I'm real big, I'll crash course this one. Intentions, I think, are silly. I'm all about expectations. I'll shortcut it for you real quick. Big, big difference between a woman who intends to have a baby and a woman who's expecting a child. If you're expecting the child, you know it's an eventuality. You know it already exists. You know that it is already in process. It's in the works. If you just intended, you may not have even met the dude yet that's going to help this to happen. And so we've got to get to where we're expecting the thing that comes into our life. We absolutely expect it. This space that we're sitting in right now, I'm bad with times, what, about 8 months ago now? Roughly? Started spouting. I got a little frustrated with politics and everybody deciding that religious freedoms was a way to hurt people like me, so I decided I should start a church. Give myself my own religious freedoms. I should have said ministry, but we said church. And when I said we, there are a couple individuals in this room that were very, very big on it. We formed paperwork. We were ready to form church. This will sound ridiculous, and it is, but it's true. One of the biggest sticking points is I don't know if we should pattern after the Jedi Church or the Church of Satan, because they both are really, really good bylaws. They really, really take care of their people and true spirituality. It's amazing. You should read. But I wasn't comfortable with the money end of it. I wasn't comfortable with the way we had to do that. Now, that being said, church. Me, I don't put things out without expecting it. So when the landlord called and said, do you want the church space to move into? I said no. And then Ann looked at it and was like, what do you mean no? The answer you're looking for is yes. And here we are. I tell the stories accurately. That's all a lead up to my big manifestation. No, I said no. Everybody should have a friend in their life that's willing to look at you and go, give me a pencil and paper and I'll show you how it can work. If you don't have one of those, get one. In manifesting things, this stone is going to represent what your expectation is, which means you got to get one in your head. Decide what it is you're manifesting here. I would suggest to you that you don't go for the biggest, most important thing in your life on your first try. I would suggest you land that somewhere in something easily obtainable, easily recognizable, so that we can validate it and begin to build that momentum that we talked about at the very beginning of the program today. Then we're going to take our stone and we're going to think about what totem, animal totem, not what would you be if you were an animal, who cares? What animal represents what you're trying to work with? I was doing one on manifesting money the other day, and I have a little statue of a crow. I set that on my incense burner on a little gold dollar coin, and I lit my incense, and I started picturing it and all of that sort of stuff. And then I looked out the window, and a crow came and landed and started staring at me through the window, and we had a moment. It's like, are you here for me? It's like, no, are you here for me? And we had a whole thing. And then look at all of you lovely people here for a workshop that we're doing. The idea of the totem is having some creature that can go out and get what you want. If you're trying to manifest something material, something like a crow or a magpie or something that's really drawn to shiny objects and material things that might bring it back to the nest, wonderful. If we're looking for something where we need to be bold and strong and set a boundary and forge our way through something like a bear or an elephant or something powerful that's going to be able to get us through. Years ago, I had a client who was going through a divorce, and he was an abuser. He was a horrible creature. I'm not even sure he's human. And she was just terrified, bad. And I was like, okay, sit down here with me. Picture a bear in your mind. Imagine there's a giant bear standing behind you. Imagine the bear's your friend and not his. And I was like, have you ever seen an insecure bear? She's like, no, I've never seen an insecure bear. And so she gets this energy going. Next week, this was not planned. I wish it had been, because I'd have been really smart. She calls me the next week, she goes, dude, I walked in, I sat down, the Missouri State Seal was right across from me with two bears facing each other. And I was like, I got one and a spare. And she just looked at him the entire time like, you're done, you're toast. Walked away with a wonderful settlement out of the case. That bear totem gave her that confidence. I wish I'd been smart enough to know there will be two bears that I see in your future. Picking what totem it is that we want. So fierce and strong, right? Oh, what if we're looking for more softness, compassion? What about a butterfly? What if we're trying to transform? What if we're wanting something soft and wonderful? What if we're having trouble figuring out how to embrace life? Octopus energy. I don't know anything that can embrace like an octopus. So we want to think about what item, what quality, that's what I'm looking for, that we actually want, and what animal would exhibit it. You're going to have to get one in your head. In typical fashion, I'm telling you all the fun parts. You're going to have to say all this stuff out loud in a second. Then we're going to take our stone. We're going to call in the directions. We're going to smudge everybody, because that's how you do sacred ceremonies. We're going to do a little smudging. We're going to bless everybody, purify them. Then we're going to come here, and one at a time, we're all going to drum and rattle, build up that energy. We're all going to stand up, and we're going to offer our stone to the 7 directions, hold it to our heart. Then one at a time, we're going to come up here, and we're going to state which animal. You don't have to tell me what your expectation is. That can be totally private. I don't need to know everybody's business. Come up here, tell me what totem it is. You're going to place it into our bowl of creation, into the womb, so that it goes into reality. Everybody's going to build that energy. You're going to then take it back and hold it to your heart. Then it'll be the next person's turn. We're all going to hold space for everybody. We're going to bring in all of the different elemental energies that are there. We're going to use our tools that we have here, and we're going to incorporate those 7 directions that we talked about and the different energies that are there with them, tying all of that into an expectation. And the best part is we're going to claim what's helping us of our choosing and what we're putting out there, and we're going to act as a supporting tribal unit holding that space for everybody while it's their turn for what they're manifesting. And I think in that moment when we can say, I want what I want and I want you to have what you want too, again, the whole world should embrace this. This is the right way to live. I want you to have whatever it is that you want. I want to have what I want too. Those things don't have to conflict. We need to step out of a world where we think that there's only so much to go around. There's only so much good. We need to quit thinking that if somebody else gets what they want, I don't get what I want. Or if I get what I want, I should feel guilty because somebody else isn't getting that thing. That's all garbage. Throw that out immediately. Get to the point where we live in abundance and goodness in a limitless universe that can provide us with everything that we need, that we want, that we desire. And realize that wants and desires, I think desire is deeper than want, that's why I separate them. I think they're just as important as your needs. If you're unfulfilled, what good is living? Everybody, current day medicine wants you to have as long a life possible. I want to have as good a life as possible. I don't care about dying. I care about the quality in which I live, and I care about the way in which I die. I think those are big distinctions. I think those are very important things. You know, the glass is already broken. That part's going to come. What happens before the glass breaks? That's what actually matters. So if we'll all move to that end of the room, so we're going to start with calling the 7 directions. This is calling in the guides, the angels, the totems, the loved ones on the other side. This is invoking those elemental energies that are there. And again, in, through, and all around you. We're not asking them to come and be in this room. We're asking them to come and inhabit us. We're asking to become one with them. And so, since I'm the loud mouth, I'm going to say all the words. When we get to that point, everybody's going to call that in from that space. And we will start, I always get turned around here. We will start facing north. I always want to face the stage. It's okay, I'm relatively sure you can all hear me even if I'm behind you. To the north in the air, we ask that you would blow into this space, and we ask that you would give us wings to rise above our present situation. We ask that you would blow away the cobwebs of the mind, and that you would take us into the highest part of our own soul, our own spirit. We ask that you would lift us up to a higher vantage point. We ask that you would bless us here and now. To the north in the air, blow into our circle now. Let's turn to the right. To the east in the earth, the place where the sun shines upon us each new day, we ask for a new beginning for everyone gathered here. We ask that you would hear what's in our mind and in our hearts and make it strong as stone and mighty as a mountain. We ask that the pathway between where we are and where we want to be would rise up to meet our footsteps, free from faltering or stumbling. To the east in the earth, be within our circle now. Turn to the right again. To the south in fire, we ask that you would burn within us a white-hot spiritual flame that chases away the shadows and illuminates the dark places. We ask that you would burn away the obstacles and that you would serve as a guiding light, showing us the way back to our own true selves, back to the own highest part of our own personality, our soul, our truth. To the south in fire, burn within the circle now. One more time. To the west in water, setting sun, and starry skies, we ask that you would wash over us, making us clean. We ask that you would take us into the depths of our emotions, our intuition, our very soul. And we ask that you would teach us to flow with grace and ease, just as the river does. To the west in water, flow into our circle now. And if everybody would face in towards the center. Earth Mother, we are your children. We come from you and we will return to you. And we ask that you would serve as a mother does, rising up to provide for your young. We ask that you would take us into your embrace, that you would love us, and that you would teach us to love our own selves. We ask that you would give us all of the nurturing, all of the sustenance that we need. Earth Mother, be with your children now. And Sky Father, who we also come from, we'll also return to. We ask that you would look down upon us this day and send your allies and helpers to us. We ask that you would preside over this ritual and this ceremony and that you make it true and lasting. We ask that you would bless each and every person here. Sky Father, be with your children now. Then close your eyes. Go within your own self. Think about the expectation that you set for the talisman that we're going to create through our ceremony. Think about what you and your life would look like in that moment. Plant the seed within. When I get to, if you would stand there with your arms out, palms face up, then I'm going to ask you to turn around. You'll go palms face down. I'll ask you to lift one foot, then I'll ask you to lift the other foot. Grandmother, grandfather, spirits of the four winds, powers of the seven directions, archangels and angels, spirit guides and animal totems, ancestors and bright shining ones, ascended shamans, masters, yogis, and gurus, illuminated spirits one and all, we call upon you. We offer this smudge to you and we ask that you'd make it smoke as a blessing so that all that is touched by the smoke will be touched by the light, blessed and made pure. We ask that you bless each and every individual here with the expectation that they're setting in their talisman. We ask that you clear away all obstacles and negativity that stands between them and that truth. Aho ado, Montankasa. And turn around, please. One foot, other foot. You can turn back around. And turn around, palms face down. Lift one foot, other foot. You can turn back around. Turn around, please. One foot, other foot. Perfect. Palms face up. Turn around, palms face down. One foot, other foot. Turn around. One foot, other foot. You kick like a mule.
I once told my mom she looked like a mule with the way her hair was.
Let's turn around. Palms face down. One foot, other foot. And turn around. One foot, other foot. And turn around. And one foot, other foot. And around. One foot, other foot. One foot. Other foot. Thank you. If we would all go back to our seats. You don't have to share what your expectation is because that's personal, but I would like for you to share what animal totem you want to help, and if you can, why? Because this is a chance we can all learn from each other. This is the way all of our different brains work. Normally I'd be like, what are you working on? Here's the perfect animal for that. We're all medicine people. And so I want you, here is the totem I'm working with. Here's why I think it has good medicine for what it is that I'm doing.
Strong, graceful, receptive.
And?
Squirrel.
Squirrel.
The nut of something has already been buried, and I just need to unearth it.
Ooh, I like that. I love that.
Penguin. Or loving approach. Panda. For gentleness and strength.
Say again?
Gentleness and strength.
I love those side by side. I wish more people would embrace those side by side.
A peacock. For self-expression and always being in honest integrity.
I got that tattoo because I felt like I needed to embrace being more expressive at one point in my life. Careful for asking for that. You could end up like this.
I think it's soft and strong at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Cardinal, the bird, because I just want them to be able to fly.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
A wolf, because for one thing, it is my spirit animal, and for two, because
Did you say wolf?
a wolf.
Okay.
Yes, and it helps me to realize that I am a free spirit myself, and I have strength, that I've dealt with a lot of adversity in my life, and I can pretty much face anything that comes my way, and I'm going to go well and worry on it.
Fantastic.
The snake, it's quiet and it's strong. You can get in and out of places. It's not a straight line. It moves around just like music does.
Jan, did you have one?
Owl.
I didn't mean to skip over you.
An owl, so I can kind of see my way out in the dark.
Fantastic. So, not one repeat in this room. That's what I want you to get out of that little exercise right there. That's why that's so cool. Because each one of you, we don't know what you're working on, but each one of you had a reason that was the thing you picked. You had something that you naturally aligned to that. And the reason I wanted something that simplistic in it is it's way easy to overcomplicate this stuff. It's way easy to think that somebody knows better than you do. You know, what animal's the right thing? The one that you align with, the one that gets you there, the one that feels right. I believe that when it comes down to manifesting and energy work, if you have a reason, it matters. If you can place a meaning on it, then it matters and it has a meaning. What else are we looking for here? And so allowing yourself to do just exactly what you did, I think that's awesome. We're going to go in. I'm going to actually do big drum for this because we want lots of energy. If you have a drum, grab your drum. If somebody wants to use this one, you certainly can. Otherwise, we're going to use our rattle, and we're going to go same order. I want you to just come up. You're going to take your stone real quick. You're going to offer it around to those directions. We're going to place it into the bowl. Then we're going to take it back to our heart. And that's our way of connecting with everybody's energy, receiving that blessing back. And you can just come up here, do that however you want to. Here's the cool thing about drumming and rattling. You just do it. You don't feel like you have to hit every note. You don't feel like you have to hit every beat. You make up your own. And the way it all comes together is the way it's supposed to come together. And we'll just give everybody their one time up here, and then as soon as they sit down, next person can jump right up. You want to take that back. Yep, put it in the bowl, pick it up, hold it to your heart, and we will all acknowledge that she's received what she wanted with aho. Aho! 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 You want to take that back with you? You can have that. Aho! 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 Energy. One of the best things that everybody in here could do to take this from this space out into your life. Some of you have part of your life that intersects with this space, but this probably isn't the thing you're here to work on today. So whatever it is that your expectation is, you want to think about that totem that's there. You want to find a way to anchor it into your world outside of this room. Here's the easiest shortcut version of all. Google an image of whatever the animal totem was, screen save it, and make it your wallpaper on your phone. Make it your lock screen on your phone. So every time you pick up your phone, there's that animal totem and it's connecting you with the thing that we just did here today. If you want to get a fetish, you would go and get a stuffed animal of what it is that you did, or go and get a shirt that has that image on it, or if you have the availability of it, get get a peacock feather, or get whatever it is that, and some of the things are going to be a little more obscure. It's going to be harder to find a penguin around here than anything else. But that doesn't mean we can't find a little stuffed penguin. That doesn't mean we can't find a picture of one. That doesn't mean that we can't find a keychain that has one on it somewhere, or whatever the thing may be. It doesn't have to be anything, because everything's sacred if we let it be an extension of us, and we realize that we're an extension of our soul, and our soul is an extension of that thing that we call God. If we can keep all of that in mind, then it doesn't matter. This came from, there are two different stories in my life that ran in together with this. I'll save the first one for a second. I was talking with a friend of mine one day, and I was explaining this exact same thing to him, and like sacred tool and ritual, and it's like, no, it's the believe in and all that, and they go, so you could use a Cheeto if you believed in it enough. The answer is yes. People spend great amounts of money. I've got some ridiculously expensive crystals in my office. Or you could use a piece of chat out of your driveway if you believed enough. The reason the fancy stuff works better is because we think fancy's better. That's the only reason that works. The original story with the Cheetos, the reason that it cracks me up every time I tell this, my parents had a married couple friend when we were younger, and both of them were psychologists. And we would eat at their house, and it wasn't until much later, my mother would laugh at me telling the story. It wasn't until much later that we realized why they kept asking us what the Cheetos looked like. They were psychologists. It was a Rorschach test they were putting us through. They wanted to know what each one of the Cheetos looked like to us, and they were psychoanalyzing us right in that moment. And so, yeah, you can believe in the Cheeto except for the trauma associated with it. Finding an object that will tie you into what it is that you're working on. Now, here is the biggest point I want you to take away from everything, because that was a wonderful ceremony. As far as ceremonies go, rituals go, there are a couple things I always look for. Did the drum break? Did the rattle fly apart? Did the smudge have trouble lighting, or did it try to burn the place down? Everything flowed. The words were all flowing. Everybody rattled nice. We all faced the same direction at once. I almost started the wrong direction, but we all faced the right direction at once. Everything went in the way that it was supposed to. Everybody did their part. They took the thing back. Everybody held space for each other. Ritual? Great. I've done a lot of rituals. I'll sign off on that one. Here's the thing that'll make it work. Do something in your real life to move towards what you want. There's not a shaman in the world that is going to do any work with you and not end it with, now what are you going to actually do? Now what are you going to do in your actual real life? What steps are you going to take to make that happen? Now that we put the energy out there, we have created a vibrational pattern. We have created that little rock that you got. That's what I call a placeholder. That is the placeholder for the energy of the thing that you're trying to manifest. There is something that represents it in the physical world right now. It already exists. There's a placeholder for that thing that you're trying to manifest. What are you going to do about it? I have the same cheesy example I use all the time. I want love in my life. Are you on a dating app? Do you leave your house? Do you go to bars? No, pretty much just hang out at home. The pizza guy? The cable guy? Is the mailman cute? I mean, you got only a few options here. Or I swear to you, hand in the air, people will come to me. Man, I believe that I deserve a better job, and I've got the resume, it's sitting on my altar. Have you sent it anywhere? Yeah. No, I'm manifesting it. No, you're not. It's real cute you think you are. What are you going to actually do? And how can you mimic what we did here to anchor it into your physical world as well? If you just start the day by acknowledging the 7 directions, if you just acknowledge that we want to get our thoughts, our words, our actions, and our beliefs together. We just did 3 of those. Now I'm telling you, take action. If we get all of those 4 things together and we realize that there is the unlimited potential of the mother, the unfertilized egg, and the intention is that activating principle of the father, then we can birth into our world anything we want. That's very much the shamanic approach to things. That's very much the way we would approach healing. Healing is just manifesting health within somebody. State of peace, a state of bliss, manifesting those states of being. Everything is a form of manifesting in one way or another. If you just acknowledge those directions, if you get a rattle, go buy one of those little egg shakers, and when you're, think about what you're doing and put that energy behind it. Find a way to emotionally get into something. Clean your house with intention. Put on music, dance around while you're doing it, and do it as an act of manifestation. Turn it into a ritual of its own. These are sacred objects. You know, the bowl from Gordman's. You can use anything. You can use any object in your house. It's just a matter of you believing in your own sacred quality, your own divinity, your own ability to draw that in, through, and all around you to become a part of it and to express it out into that world. And the more you get yourself emotionally, energetically involved, stronger it's going to be. If this catches your interest, hit the website. We've got shaman training coming up. We've always got some sort of a meditation workshop coming out. We really are in the final stages of the app. They're working the little bitty details out of that's not exactly right, this is how you want to do it instead. Before too long, we're going to have the Urban Shaman out for everybody, and it will tell you everything that's going on. You'll get shit my shaman says delivered to you, spirit messages delivered to you every week, all sorts of good stuff. Watch for everything that's there, and do yoga. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate every single one of you.